Hello SAO survivors! This month we got one game that is dead and one game that expanded to new horizons. Can you tell which is which? Congratulations! Variant Showdown is knocked out and Integral Factor has been released on Steam, reaching to even more people. Welcome SAO survivors, and this is Dead Game Report, the series I titled as a joke but has me speaking about a game that's now dead in the second episode, albeit temporarily. Drop a like if you're interested and make sure to subscribe for more, but without further ado, let's dive into the performance of both games quickly, shall we? And then we'll dive a bit deeper for some context of the performances for those interested, so here's the overview. At a glance, Variant Showdown performed as expected. Well, that's half the truth. We knew something was up with Variant Showdown, production ramped down significantly, there was no monthly battle pass, no content in-game at all, but I was still adamant that there would be no end of service announcement, and I was correct. Wasn't as much of a gamble statement as many people thought it was. The game was having regular under the hood development, so it made no sense that they just killed the game. But as you can see from the popularity graph, blue is July, red is August, higher number is better. The game was already acting as a zombie in August, sometimes dropping well below rank 1000, causing it to not be tracked at all. And eventually, on August 21st, the official accounts announced that the game would be taken offline at the end of September and would go back into full-on development until the summer of 2024. These decisions are of course not made on a whim, so the drop in July and early August, they likely already had the plan fixed, explaining the lack of content and the sudden drop of the remaining story. All in all, they absolutely did the right thing. I keep saying this over and over. Unleash Blading was not killed because Variant Showdown had to be released. Variant Showdown was rushed because Unleash Blading was dead. And here we have the proof that it actually needed more than half a year of development time, if not more. If you want more info on the temporary shutdown, I have a separate video, click the icon on the top right or check the description for that one. As for Integral Factor, it had a very good month in August, and that's even without counting the expansion into Steam, so I'm sure the team there is quite happy with this one. A clearly noticeable increase in popularity on phones with the new floor release on the 23rd, which maintained throughout the rest of the month, something that was quite lacking with the past couple story releases. Shouldn't be a surprise though, that was a phenomenal floor story with incredible character moments for Lifa, great backstory introduction for Notte, and a lot of very cleverly used progressive floor 7 lore utilized in this story. I'll share the link for my floor story review as a Twitter thread, but this story was one of those high points of Integral Factor, and the increased popularity portrays the result. Integral Factor also had its second highest revenue in 2023 so far, well above its average, and that does not even include the Steam version as I said earlier. The game finished August with an average concurrent player count of 540 on Steam, so on average there were 540 players online at the same time since its release, with a peak of almost 1,000 players. I would expect this to go up if Bandai Namco manages to promote the game well enough, but I have my doubts on that front and we'll talk about it more in the detailed section. And before we move on to that detailed section, this video is brought to you by the Sword Art Online Platinum Collector's Edition by Yempress. This is a huge box that features all Sword Art Online stories from Volume 1 all the way to 20 in 2 large hardcover books with huge illustrations inside, fitted nicely in this amazing box featuring an illustration from Abeshi. Up to Volume 20 means you will not only be getting up until the end of Alicization, but also 2 additional side story volumes featuring Moon Cradle Part 1 and Moon Cradle Part 2, the Alicization side stories that take place during the maximum acceleration phase. But that's not all. All 20 volume covers are turned into mini posters on their own, while the box illustration also comes as a huge poster. For an extensive look into the contents to see if it's worth it for you, my unboxing video is available by tapping the icon on the top right. And Amazon links to the Platinum Collector's Edition is down below in the description. Do give it a look, and chances are you'll even find it with a nice discount too. Now, back to the video. Alright, let's start the deep dive with Sword Art Online Variant Showdown, since there's not so much to say. The game is shutting down until the summer of 2024 on the 28th of September. I suspect the full-on relaunch, those of you who have been watching the channel for a long time have kept listening to me talking about it, and it is finally gonna happen in a much more bold way that makes me happy, so to say. They tried to fix and improve a live game, which is very hard to do on its own. Things they added just caused more issues for them due to the shaky infrastructure, so this extended maintenance, as it's called, is them taking a step back, bringing the game down, and continuing development time behind closed doors, where they can properly dive deep with their game and touch stuff they were not inclined to as a live game in fear of breaking fundamental stuff. That is the best thing they could have done, and it is very likely that the game is going to be coming back alongside the Alternative Gun Gale Online Anime Season 2 whenever that airs. But other than that, there's not much more I can say. A disastrous month of August for Variant Showdown, but obviously there was no content aside from the Battle Royale seasons with the extended maintenance announcement. With no content, popularity ranking is in the dumpster and there is no revenue to be made. And in September, all purchases have been suspended, so potentially there won't even be a Dead Game Report feature for Variant Showdown next time around. However, the dev team has promised roughly monthly update posts on the state of development, which I will take as monthly. So once the maintenance starts, that will be our monthly feature regarding Variant Showdown. As for Integral Factor, as mentioned in the overview, Integral Factor had an incredibly solid month in August, not only ranking much higher than average and recording its second highest revenue in 2023 so far, but also expanding into new markets with the Steam release, although I cannot ignore how disastrous of a launch that PC release was. It baffles me that they let the game simply not function at all for 2 hours straight on release, before even acknowledging there being an issue, which is exactly why this incredible visual novel is sitting at a 57% mixed score on Steam. Incredibly careless attitude plagued the early hours of Steam release and allowed the low score to settle that it still has not recovered from. I know it was 7-8 AM in Japan at the time, but you knew you had a release. You had to have people in the office to immediately respond to the emergency, you know? That emergency being your app not functioning for a single soul for 2 hours straight until you realize that your logs were filled with random disconnects and not a single connection from Steam lasting longer than 2 minutes before being abruptly disconnected. I'm sorry, but however you look at it, that was a disaster entirely caused by carelessness. Furthermore, Integral Factor does not even have an English-facing communication channel. Not that it didn't take over 2 hours for the Japanese Twitter account to acknowledge there was an issue, but even after they did acknowledge it, the Western fanbase simply had no clue because there was literally no way for them to know, aside from the ever so vague "the servers are in maintenance" pop-up in the game. I don't think that's acceptable. It was never acceptable for a mobile game to begin with, and even less so when you open up to the global PC audience via Steam. The game launched over half a decade ago, sure, when the Western communication was not at all a priority for Japanese gacha games. But we're in 2023 now. Either use the SAO Video Games official Twitter account for Integral Factor 2, or open up an SAOIF_WW for worldwide account, you know? The Facebook page it's borderline worthless. Politically engaged, gullible grandparents, they are not your target demographic, and they are the only ones left still using Facebook. With that rant out of the way, as a content schedule, Integral Factor did not really have much of an out-of-the-ordinary month, but the masterfully done new floor alongside the Sword Art Online video game strategy meeting Japan-related events boosted the engagement and interest a lot in the second half of the month. And that's what you see in the final 10 days with the higher than average popularity rank with the red line compared to last month's blue line. On average, Integral Factor ranked around 100 ranks higher in August than in July in those final days, and finished August with an average rank of 362, which is, admittedly, generally on par with historic average month stats, but in terms of revenue, it finished with a solid 70 million yen, well above average and just 10 million yen below its top performance of 2023, which was January with 82 million yen. But I would not expect this good performance to carry on this high above average into September. They were very successful at matching the good floor story timing with the SAO game strategy meeting celebrations. I'm sure that banner with Abeshi illustrations brought them some nice cash with the influx of players as well. But celebratory events, they are usually spikes, not increases that are maintained over time. A lot of the fuel has been lost already, seemingly returning the game back to its average performance so far in September. However, they have a great chance of turning it into a permanent increase if they play their cards right. The 5.5 anniversary is coming and we have already some mini celebrations in the game. If they ramp up these celebrations with the weekly reset tomorrow, which you may even see before this video goes live, depending on how fast I can edit and upload it, they may just maintain that hype spike a bit, and by doing so turn a bunch of players who came back just for the celebratory hype into players hooked into the game in general. So let's hope that happens. Welcome SAO survivors to Weekly Integral Factor. We're following a huge news week with the smallest possible news week. Quite disappointing considering I've been getting into grinding Integral Factor these days, and this ended up being kind of a bummer. But all of that is on the mobile side based on Japanese stats. They're still the Steam players. Now, Steam charts is not at all helpful. It does not feature revenue data, and even those websites that do feature revenue or whatever, I am not certain how reliable they would be. I also don't think it's helpful to compare data between irrelevant games. Like, I can say Integral Factor has a peak concurrent player count of 944, while Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel had 38,000 players. But games have different fan bases, they have different draws, they have different commitments that they require, that it makes no sense to compare between those highly different games. Outside of story drops, I logged into Integral Factor daily for 10 minutes a day to do the daily chores and log out. If I'm logging on to Master Duel, chances are I'm there to commit some time to duel people and etc, etc. So the gist of what I'm trying to say here is, while I will report that Integral Factor had a peak concurrent player count of 944 and an average of 540 in August, which was recorded in less than 10 days, the goal is to set up a baseline for Integral Factor, so in future months we can have a trend that we can analyze for Integral Factor on Steam. I'll also go ahead and say that a 9-day a month in release period, no less, that is already a terrible sample to establish a trend from. So I'd urge you to just not care for this bit at all at this point in time. We can start looking at the Steam performance more seriously starting next month as we establish a trend. The great thing about Steam charts is that we can see the effects of individual events much more clearly with cardinal numbers in the form of player counts rather than ordinal numbers, that is, popularity rank. We actually do have absolute numbers regarding player counts, and that matters. Why does that matter? Well, that can give us some really good insights on how certain editions, certain events, certain banners affect player engagement. That is definitely something I'm looking forward to in future months. Then we can actually say things about how the game is performing on PC with a decent sample and detailed stats. But so far, that is it from Dead Game Report for August, and I will see you all next time for the month of September. I tried to be a little bit more surface level this time around, since it was part of the feedback that things were a bit confusing in the previous one, so I hope that helped. Please just do let me know. Also, feel free to point out things that you would want to know more about, and I'll see if I can include them in future reports. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and until next time, stay cool.